Afrique Express, a new African talk show rebranding Africa. We're insightful, inquisitive, and intriguing. We simply bring Africa to you. Check us out on WCTR Channel 3 every Saturday at 1:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Africa Express. We are talking with Mr. Chase Stewart, who is the first African American elected in the Brockton City Council. As we were talking before the break, a lot of stuff has been said about this man in terms of performing his job. Some say he's too ambitious. Some say he has changed Brockton around. That means that people are actually held accountable for what they do in office. In an article with the Globe, you are quoted to say, "I could not galvanize the people. I needed a framework." Please do explain what this framework means.
Right. Well, and also let me say that I'm at City Hall as much as I can possibly be. There are a lot of great people who work there who have dedicated their lives to public service, and so, part of my job as a city councilor really is, ironically, it's not to really represent the institution of City Hall, but to represent residents. And I make the assumption that when someone calls me, they've already tried to work with the institution, the bureaucracy, and got stymied. And so that as a last resort, they've come to me to help move their agenda. I say that because part of my role is to kind of be, as a city councilor, I think a good one, somewhat at odds with the establishment, City Hall. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not doing their jobs well. In many cases they are, in some cases they're absolutely not. But that the interest of the resident may not resonate with the interest of City Hall. So I really am sort of the hired person for the resident to make certain their voice is being heard. So it puts a kind of strange dynamic of always trying to reach that fine balance of I'm a city employee,
right,
and that I'm responsible for what happens in City Hall. But at the same time, I really work for the residents. And so it's a really interesting space to be in. But to answer your question, that quote came from the fact that when I was elected, what I had wanted to do was to figure out what was the city council's agenda for the first term. There were 3 things that the city council as a body wanted to accomplish, or even one thing they wanted to accomplish. And I learned that's not really how the city council works, that it's a very sort of made up of 11 very independent individuals. And I couldn't really, in my mind, operate that way. So what I decided to do, because I felt like I needed to be proactive, that I needed to sort of set goals, and that I wanted people to hold me accountable for what I say I'm going to accomplish, I then created this sort of 5-point plan based on what I wanted to achieve over the first term, the first 2 years, and took my old political platforms over the last 3 elections, which had probably like 25 points altogether, maybe a little bit more, did a survey and said to residents, tell me which of the 5 you think are the most important that I should work on over the next 2 years. And then that has become my driving force, and that's informed the working groups that I've been involved in. So it's, accountability, jobs, education, safety, and neighborhood. So we released 2 reports, one on neighborhoods and one on accountability already. We're going to release the next 3 over the next 3 months. And those recommendations from those reports will really guide my sort of strategic work for the rest of this term, and hopefully if I'm reelected in November, into my next term.
Some have said that you are not a team player. And that you have overstepped your bounds by speaking up and trying to reform things in the city of Brockton. Is that true?
It's probably true, depending on who's concerned about what I'm doing and what side of the support they land on. In terms of overstepping my bounds, there is this belief by some people that seat time is more important than performance. So if I've been elected for 80 years, but I've done nothing, I still should have more say than someone who's been elected for 2 years and who's accomplished a lot. And I've never been a believer in seat time. I've been a believer in performance. And frankly, I think People who voted for me have the same voice as the people who voted for someone who's been in office multiple terms. So I don't really buy into that. I'm very respectful of the institution, and I'm always very respectful of people. But I don't let those old ways of doing business and the old ways of thinking deter me.
Business as usual.
Yeah, deter me from what I've committed. And there's nothing that I've done, I believe, that should surprise anyone who elected me to this office. If you read any article dating back to 2004 on Jass Stewart, you'll find that I'm delivering on all the things I talked about before. And so the playbook for me is already there. So if anyone is keen on supporting me, you can go to my website and read the literature on me, and you'll see where I'm going. And unfortunately, for those people who are interested in blocking me, you can read the literature and see where I'm going, because I've been pretty focused on that roadmap that I've laid out in my political campaigns. In terms of being a team player, I'm a believer in you work with people, you try to build consensus, you collaborate to a certain extent, but the train has to keep moving. And so I don't mind if the train slows down, but a lack of willingness to be an honest broker in terms of accomplishing things has to be there. If I feel like a person isn't being an honest broker, that they're not really interested in working with you, that they're interested in blocking and holding you up, then I just keep on trucking. Because again, I'm accountable to the folks who put me in office, and that's how I've been running that's how I've been governing, I think, for the last year and a half or so.
And I think that's the way it should be. I think it's unfortunate that people that are elected in public office, that they don't think that they are accountable to the people that put them there. Because, for instance, look at what's going on in Egypt right now. Mm-hmm. People are saying, look, we are here. We are the one that support you to be there. Right. And I think that's who your allegiance are to first. And quite all right, you also work for the city, but your allegiance is to the people who put you there. They put you there to represent them, to speak for them. And the fact that you listen to them and not necessarily playing the business as usual game.
Right. Yeah. I'm not about getting along, going along to get along. Mm-hmm. But I'm also not reckless, and I'm not foolish, and I try to take the job very seriously, and I want to be collegial, and for the most part, I think I have. So even the article had me reflect a little bit, because it felt more contentious than I think I am in terms of my work with my colleagues. Most of the things that I put forward have not been that controversial, and people have supported. Some have been, but I don't think that should slow anyone's effort to push forward a cause that they believe in. So I'm going to do the people's business. That's what I've been elected to, but that doesn't ironically mean that people will get the results that they want. I've taken on causes for folks, done my research, and really discovered that that issue didn't have merit, that the city was right. And one guy who I put a lot of time and energy trying to figure out this issue and all that sort of stuff wrote me and said that I had sold my soul to the devil because I didn't give him the result that he wanted. So, everyone has an agenda. I try not to worry about what people's agendas are, because we all have agendas. Right. You call me, I respond. You email me, I respond. And that's kind of how I've decided to do my work. I do it in order. Sometimes I respond right away. Sometimes it actually takes me a couple days, depending on how long the list is that day, for me to get through the requests.
Well, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to be talking about the water issue that is going on in Brockton.